Hey BookTube, this is Friday Reads after a bit of a hiatus. I'm Jen and I talk about audiobooks, and it's been crazy around my house. Getting ready for Thanksgiving and then having Thanksgiving here in America. It can be a big holiday or not, and it was craziness. So that's why you haven't seen me in a couple of weeks. So I've read about 13, 14 books, something like that. And I'm not going to tell you about every one because some of them were just 3-star romances. Nothing really spectacular about them. But I'll tell you about the highlights. Okay. The Caroline and West duology by Robin York is narrated by Mike Chamberlain and Lynde Houck. And this is a debut. And the narration was wonderful. I loved it because these two narrators were able to really capture these characters. In fact, all of the books that I'm going to tell you about, that was the high point in the narration that was so good, was that these narrators were able to capture the personalities of the characters and relate them in such an authentic way that I never stopped to think I was listening to an audiobook. It was like listening to this character tell me this story. And that's the best kind of narration that you can have. So this is a story, a really interesting story, about revenge porn. And that is when someone is has photographs or, I don't know, some kind of a recording, and they are in a compromising position, and that goes public without their knowledge or consent. So in this case, it's a girl, Caroline, who let her boyfriend take some pictures of her, and then when she broke up with him, he put them out there in social media, and they went viral. And so now she's a pariah in her college, which is unfortunate since she was going to run for class president, and she has a lot of political aspirations later on in her life. And this is just wrecking those. I mean, it pretty much just destroys her future. And so it's all about how she deals with that and how she has to come to terms with the fact that she is not that person. She is not that image. You know, like there is a difference between her as a person and what has happened in terms of the way she's been portrayed. So there are some legal things that come into play, and this is mainly about her coming to grips with the whole thing. And West is a guy who could care less. He sees her as a woman who is capable, and he doesn't care that there are pictures out there. He just, as a matter of fact, we meet him when he punches the guy that put them, the ex-boyfriend, that put them on social media because the guy's being such a jerk. And so there is a gradual, very slow burn romance that happens, and lots of things to deal with, but it's very empowering for girls, and it was much funnier than I thought it was going to be, so that kept me listening. And overall, the first book, I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and then the sequel, which is called, the first book is called Deeper, the second book is called Harder, and it's got more of a focus on West and his family and the life that he had growing up, and the fact that he is basically raising, albeit somewhat from a distance, his younger sister, who is like 10, 12 years younger than he is, and then how that affects their relationship between he and Caroline. So it's a great story. I'm glad I read them back to back and that they're both out, and I didn't have to wait for one because the first one does end on a cliffhanger. And then I picked up Dry by Neal Shusterman and Jarrod Shusterman. And this is narrated by a full cast, including those 2 authors, and then Jenni Barber, Michael Crouch, Noah Galvin, Candace Thaxton, and I have trouble saying this one, Kivlighan. Yeah, Kivlighan de Montebello. This is a little kid who is a very good narrator. I think he's a little kid. He sounds like a little kid, but he's the little brother, and his name is spelled Kivlighan. Kivlighan. Yeah, I think that's it. It's probably very Irish, or I don't know, de Montebello. That's kind of Italian, isn't it? But anyway, okay. This book was very well narrated. In as much as some of the kids were, this is a group of teenagers, and they get annoying at times. They really do. And so that's good narration. If you've got narrators that are trying to interpret characters and personalities that are annoying, and they are, then I'd say that was a pretty job well done. So this is about a water shortage that happens in California. It is very right now, and it's called the tap out, and it begins when this family in California turns on their faucets and nothing comes out. One of the things that Shusterman does so well is takes an issue and examines it and really highlights some of the problems that happen when these issues are raised. And so it's one of those, do you help people? And do you do that even though they should have been prepared? And how much compassion do you offer when whatever you do could contribute to a mob mentality and all hell will break loose? So it's got a lot going on. It's very fast-paced. It's it's a lot of teenagers and a lot of angst. And I didn't always like the main character that Jenni Barber voices, because she just had a lot of high-minded ideals that didn't flesh out practically in the real world. And there were times that I just wanted to shake her. I just thought, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Overall, it's so well written. It's very well done, and it's got a good ending, and you do kind of wonder if justice is ever going to get served, but yeah, that's kind of beside the point. I ended up rating it 4 stars, 4.5 actually, and then I rounded it up to 5, because honestly, I don't think there's anything that Neal Shusterman has written or will write that I won't read, because he's just such a compelling author. And then I saw that there was a short story coming out called Luffs by Shay Savage. And this is the companion, it's a short story that is a companion to Transcendence. It's not out on audio, and so I just grabbed it on Kindle and immediately read it. And you can sit and read it in an hour. But Transcendence is the story of a romance between a caveman in prehistoric times and a girl who falls through time inadvertently, and it's their romance. And the thing about this caveman is that he has no capacity for language. So he can't understand speech. Like, you can talk to him, but it's not like he doesn't understand the language. Like, he doesn't understand anything in terms of associating a sound with a thing. Like, you could tell him this is a book, and it's like it makes no sense to him. To him, you're just waving this around and making noise. So interesting, and actually found it in Science. And so this little novella gives you the girl's perspective and how terrified she is, and it just kind of skips over the high points. It's very quick. I ended up giving it 5 stars, and that's mainly because it's part of this book, this other story, Transcendence, which I absolutely adore. So yeah, I don't know that it was anything terribly special. It didn't really add anything to the story, although, you know, it was nice to get her perspective on some level. But yeah, I loved it. Then I picked up One Day in December by Josie Silver. This is narrated by Eleanor Tomlinson and Charlie Anson. And this was the pick for the Happily Ever Afters book club on Goodreads. And the link for that is in the description box in case you would like to check that out. We have a new book here for December, which starts tomorrow. And so this is a kind of a holiday romance. And the thing about the narration that I want to tell you is, again, these 2 narrators embodied these characters so well, just so well. I felt like I was listening to the characters tell me the story rather than listening to narrators tell me the story or read me the story or any kind of thing like that. I completely disassociated and got completely immersed in the book. Never got pulled out of the story. And it's wonderful. It did take a little while to get going, but once it did, well, I have to tell you, I did read the end. I know, I never do that, but I had to read the end to make sure that there was going to be a happy ending, because I don't trust authors anymore, really. I read so many happy endings that when I run across women's fiction like this, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But this is set in the UK, and these narrators are both English, and it's the story of a missed opportunity and just these two people that keep missing each other. They lock eyes. She's on a bus, he's at the bus stop, and so they lock eyes, and it's love at first sight. And he doesn't get on the bus. He's a little bit late to the, getting, like, realizing. And she doesn't get off the bus. She's like frozen. So she spends the whole next year looking for him, and then a Christmas party rolls around, and her roommate, who is like a sister to her, says, you got to meet my new boyfriend. And of course, it's him. So over the years, it's the next 9 years of their lives, and what happens, and the ups and downs, ins and outs. And I thought this was okay. I didn't love it. I thought, I was not in a hurry to get back to the book every time I put it down. And so it was really interesting to me that a couple of days after I finished it, I had rated it like 3 stars, and I started thinking about it again. I thought, if I'm thinking about this book and these characters have stayed with me, that's saying a lot for the way that the book was written and the way it hit me. So I went back and changed my rating, and I ended up giving it, what did I give it? 4 stars. And it's a high 4 stars. I think it's still 4 stars because it does have its problems, but I've even gone back and listened to other parts of it, and it's so well done. These narrators really made this book. And then I picked up Left to Tell, and this is, I'm going to mispronounce this woman's name. It's just hard to say. By Imaculee Ilibagiza. Yeah. And it's narrated by Lisa Renee Pitts, who was good. I think I would rather have heard this straight from the author because it's nonfiction. And it's not that the narration was bad, not by any stretch of the imagination. It was very good. It just wasn't the author. This is all about the genocide that happened in Rwanda, and about a girl who was relatively young. She was about, 20, but she and I think it was 6 other women lived in a 4-by-5 foot bathroom that was hidden in the house of a pastor while the whole genocide happened. And Tutsis were just murdered. They were called cockroaches by the government. It was a military regime that came in and took over. This is history, so if you know anything about that situation, you'll know that it was horrific what people did to each other. And she was able to live through it, and it was a horrible experience. And she has gone on to become a motivational speaker and to talk about her faith and the way that God got her through this whole situation. She's pretty much of an amazing survivor, and not just a survivor, but she has taken this and just flourished. So I ended up giving that one 4 stars. Then I picked up The Dream Daughter by Diane Chamberlain. This is narrated by Susan Bennett, and oh my gosh, the narration was so good. I am so pleased when a narrator will get a Southern accent right, and this one did. Susan Bennett nailed this. This book is set in, I think it's North Carolina, I want to say. Yeah, it is, because the main character goes to UNC, and she lives in the Outer Banks. And it's about a woman who is in the 70s. She's married, and her husband is in the military, and he gets sent to Vietnam, and he dies. So she's widowed, but she finds out she's pregnant. She finds out her baby has a heart defect and that the baby will probably not live. And so her brother-in-law takes her aside and says, I have a way for you to fix this. He was part of a time travel program. So he sends her back, or he sends her forward in time, and it's about what happens. And what I loved about this book was that it was so authentic. It was so honest. It was so true to the time period and to the emotions of people and the way that they would have responded to fantastic ideas and being out of their own time. And it has an incredible ending. You know, a lot of these books, that ending was what got me. And yeah, this one was no exception. Oh, it was so good. 5-star book for me. You know, I loved it. It had all the things that I love, and time travel, a little bit of science. And the thing about the time travel was that it didn't get complicated. Diane Chamberlain was really smart, and she just said, you know, here are the rules. You know, here's how you do it, and here's what you're not allowed to do. But it is not because you don't know what's going to happen. It's more because of the things that the people who do it, who time travel, who came up with it, said, don't ever do this. And so it's rules like that, rather than if you do this, some horrible thing is going to happen. And, you know, she's inventing physics. She didn't do any of that. She was just really simple about it. Loved it. And those are the high points from the last couple of weeks. Right now, I am listening to something that's completely off the charts, like complete departure. It's called Helldivers, and it's narrated by R.C. Bray. I can't even remember who it's by, but I'll put that here on the screen. And it's pretty good. It's sci-fi, adult sci-fi about the human race has been reduced to living in airships that circle the earth, and the ships are falling apart because they were never meant to carry the human race, and now we're down to one ship, and there are monsters on the surface, and yeah, it's kind of crazy. So lots of red shirts in this book, if you know what I mean. So it's entertaining, it's good, and it was recommended to me by my neighbor right over there. So I'm enjoying that, and I don't know where I'll go from there, probably back to romance, because I have a whole slew of books up here that I'm trying to work my way through that were given to me. So anyway, let me know what you're reading this weekend. Let me know how your holiday went, if you celebrated the holiday, and if not, did you get some shopping done? And if not, what are you doing? How are you? Let's talk about all that in comments, and have a good weekend, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.